The first night, people called it a trick of perspective. The moon rose fat and bright, low on the horizon, the kind of harvest moon that made photographers happy and romantics reckless. It looked close enough to touch, as if the sky had leaned down to listen. By midnight, it was gone behind buildings and mountains, and most people forgot about it. The second night, it was bigger. Not by much, just enough to make the familiar face seem wrong. The craters were too crisp. The shadows on its surface looked deeper, more sculpted. Amateur astronomers compared photos and felt their stomachs drop. The moon wasn't playing with angles. It had moved. By the third night, tides began to misbehave. Coastal towns woke to water where streets used to be. Docks snapped their ropes. The sea breathed harder, pulled by a growing hand in the sky. At first it was called an anomaly, then a rare alignment, then an emergency. Governments issued calm statements while satellites quietly confirmed the impossible truth. The moon's orbit was shrinking. Every night it came closer. The change was slow enough to deny during the day. Sunlight returned, schedules held, bills were paid. But the nights became a ritual of dread. Families stood outside and watched the sky the way you watch a stranger approach too fast. The moon's gravity reached deeper each evening, tugging at oceans, at crust, at the thin liquid core of human certainty. Weeks passed. The moon filled more of the sky, turning night into a pale, watchful day. Shadows sharpened. Animals went mad with confused instincts. Birds migrated in circles. Wolves howled at a light that no longer felt distant. Sleep became shallow, not from noise, but from the sense of being observed by something enormous and descending. Scientists worked without rest. They ran models that refused to stabilize. If the moon kept falling inward, it would cross thresholds, Roche limits, tidal disruption zones, where physics turned violent. Some predicted it would break apart, forming rings that would rain debris. Others predicted collision. All predicted catastrophe. And still, the moon kept coming. On the 41st night, earthquakes arrived like a new calendar. Not the occasional shiver the planet had always known, but a constant trembling, as if Earth was being slowly wrung out. Fault lines groaned. Volcanoes woke, their chambers stirred by tidal forces squeezing magma like toothpaste. Cities learned to live in motion, chairs strapped down, bridges inspected hourly, people walking with the careful steps of those on a ship. Then came the nights of the low moon. It hung so large that it seemed to press against the atmosphere. You could see details with the naked eye that once required telescopes. The Maria looked like dried bloodstains. The Terminator line, the edge of night on its face, was a cliff of darkness so sharp it felt like a blade. People stopped making jokes. Religions filled. Cults rose. Others emptied. Because what do you pray to when the threat is not judgment but gravity? Weddings were postponed. Wars paused. For a brief, strange moment, humanity unified, not in hope but in shared vertigo. The oceans became monstrous. Tides no longer came twice a day. They surged whenever the moon passed overhead, pulling water into bulges that rolled across the planet. Entire coastlines retreated inland. Ships were dragged into places ships had never been. In some bays, the sea withdrew so far it left fish flapping on exposed sand, only to return minutes later as a wall. On the last week, the moon began to change color. Not the warm red of an eclipse, but a bruised, darkening tone, as if its surface were shedding dust into the space between it and Earth. Astronomers cheered for the first time in months. It wasn't just closer, it was stressed, strained, breaking. On the 65th night, the sky trembled. A faint veil appeared around the moon, a halo that was not light but debris, tiny fragments torn loose by tidal forces. The ring thickened each night. Meteors began to fall, not in showers but in steady, glittering drifts. They burned quietly like the sky shedding sparks. People gathered on rooftops and fields, watching with faces lit by catastrophe and beauty. Then, at dawn on the 70th day, the moon did not rise. It was still there, of course, but its shape had changed. The familiar disk was smeared into an arc, a broken crown of ice and rock encircling the planet. Earth had rings now, pale and luminous, The debris spread into a band that caught sunlight and scattered it into soft, endless twilight. The danger didn't vanish. The tide still raged, the quake still came. But the collision everyone had feared had been transformed into something else. A slow, grinding rearrangement of the sky. Humanity stood beneath the new rings and understood what the moon had always been. Not a decoration, a force. And when that force moved, even by inches each night, the entire planet had no choice but to move with it.